All right, ladies and gentlemen and ladies, my good student, today is another beautiful day the Lord has made. As usual, we need to start off by giving gratitude to God. Right, God is being with us. We are here this morning. We are healthy without any problems. We need to say thank you, God, right? And as we always do, I would like us to commit this session of the lecture into his hand and humbly ask him to give his wisdom to guide us so that we may be able to understand what we are going to do here today. Right? Okay. Yeah. So now back to business. Today we are going to discuss about the different types of business that one could establish. Right. Perhaps you've got a business idea, right? Like a dream. You know what I mean by a dream. Who doesn't dream here? You don't dream. I pray you do tonight, right? You've got a dream of owning your own business, right? You need to determine what type of business or what form of business that you need to engage yourself with or to register, right? So we've got different types of businesses, right? We got what we call sole proprietorship. Sole proprietorship, right? Sole proprietorship is one man's business. One man's business. We're going to talk about the various characteristics of sole proprietorship, which could as well lead us to talk about the advantages as well as the disadvantages that are accrued to so different types of businesses, not only sole proprietorship. You know what I mean by advantages and disadvantages, right? Okay. If you decide to register or to go for a sole proprietorship, what are the benefits that you stand to enjoy, as well as the disadvantages that will occur to you or will happen to or the disadvantages that are going to you're going to face as far as such business is concerned. Then we got partnership, right? You know partnership, whereby you look for somebody to combine with to run a business. For example, you can combine with your sweetheart, right? You know sweetheart. Most of you don't have sweetheart, right? Okay. So for those of you who know about sweetheart, you can do business combined with your wife, right? Like those days, I was doing business with my sweetheart. It's not so easy for you to be doing business with your sweetheart every day, day in, day out. You are together, right? It's not so easy. I remember there was a lady that came to us once at a time, was asking my wife, how do you manage to navigate this type of life? You with your sweetheart, you are here every day in, day out, you know. But by the grace of God, we were able to navigate. And there was no problem. You know, when there is an order, quickly I will tell my sweetheart, I'm coming, let me go and get it. You know, all those kind of stuff. It was very lovely, right? We enjoyed it and it was good. Right. Then we got close cooperation. Close cooperation in South Africa. I think this book is outdated. There is nothing like close cooperation in South Africa again. Are you there? You know where I'm speaking from? 28. There is nothing like close cooperation in South Africa again, right? So yeah, for knowledge sake, I'll just tell you what close corporation entails. Then private companies, right? PTY. Okay, now let's first of all talk in terms of legal status. Legal status. When you look at sole proprietorship, note it doesn't have that single or separate legal status. What do you mean by legal status? Listen, all focus, listen to me. Right. A sole proprietorship or a one man's business or a one man show, if you will, right? One man show, one man show, right? It doesn't have a legal entity of itself, a legal status. Legal status in the sense that it's not like a human being. You are the owner of the business, right? If anything happens, you are the one that gonna be responsible, right? So there are certain of these businesses, they are not even registered. They are not incorporated. Some, for example, all the tax shop in your area, are they incorporated? They are not incorporated. They are not registered, right? Most of these tax shops they were established by one person or have been established by one person. Then they start running it. They don't have a legal state. If anything happens, you go and choke the person, right? So it's not something you say, okay, by law, is protected with a company, which has its own legal status, right? So you say not a separate legal entity. Then for partnership, okay, let me first of all talk in terms of membership. For sole proprietorship is one, right? Then for partnership is from 2 to 20. Guys, these things are very important. Note it. If possible, memorize the numbers. Membership numbers is very important, right? Partnership is start from 2 to 20. If you want to indulge yourself in a partnership business, as from 2 people to 20 is what we regarded as that can be classified as a form of partnership business. Does it make sense to you? Then for close corporation is 1 to 10. Like I said, there is nothing like close corporation in South Africa. They used to call it CC, close corporation. I remember those days, my first business I registered, it was CC. You see, that is why in the first place, I'm well positioned to teach you this subject because I've been in business. I know all these things. I did it myself, not reading it from the book, practical, you know. So I know how these things work. Even if you want to register a business, you can consult me. Now, up to now, I can help you to register a business within 2 days, even a day, it get incorporated because I'm a registered agent, accredited agent, right? You see, so I was doing those things those days, and I'm still doing some of this part, some of the stuff. Then, in terms of PTY, it's 1 to 50. PTY. Have you ever seen something like this before? My body's a mess, but never mind, right? Never mind. Remember, our video is growing global now, right? So we must be careful, have to be very diligent in whatever we are doing here, right? Okay. Have you ever seen something like this? PTY Ltd, right? Juga. Let's say Juga. Juga Pty Ltd, right? This one is a company. This is what we are talking about, the one for private company, right? We say the membership are 1 to 50. 1 to 50. Please note it, very important, right? Okay. You know what this one means? This one means proprietary. Proprietary. This one means limited. Limited. Proprietary. Proprietary. This one means limited. So, as student of new venture, you should be able to know what it means, right? Anywhere you see it, business that are private businesses that are incorporated, right? It has this PTY limited, right? But government establishment, public limited liability that render services, utilities, that one is public, right? For example, when you see like all these big companies, right? Organizations, those ones are different. But private one, like if you want to register and you want to incorporate your business, then you can, they will write your name, then say PTY Limited. It can form under this category. So 1 to 50, right? That means you as a person, you can register a PTY. Right. I remember I registered mine as a PTY, then later I could put my wife in. Right? It's possible, you as a person. Right? One of these days, you can aspire to have a business. You become a director. Here, you're going to be, it's, for partnership, you don't call them directors, they are members. Right? But for companies, you call them directors. Big guys. No? Directors. You can as well become a director one of these days when you register a company. I remember when I registered my first company. You know, when I registered my first company, 2004. How old were you? Yeah, you were not born. Yeah, that was when I incorporated my first business, 2004. The name of the business was Baputi Property Holdings. You see? Okay, let me not talk about that, right? Yeah. So then the membership, as I say, you don't call them membership, you call them directors. Then in terms of legal status, right? The same legal status that apply to sole proprietorship is the same with partnership, right? They don't have that legal status or legal entity, right? They are responsible for their deed and misdeed, right? When a company have a legal status, listen to the language I'm going to use now. Listen carefully. When a company have a legal status, they are like a human being, like a person. They can be sued and be sued. That is a law language. They can be sued and they can sue and be sued. Let me write it for you. They can be sued. They can sue, right? And yeah, eh, and be sued. Sued. You know what is sued? Take it to court, right? They can take somebody to court. A company can take somebody to court, and you can take a company to court. That is what that legal entity is talking about. It's like a human being. Like you, somebody can take you to court. You got the right to take somebody to court. So when you incorporate your business, it's like it's standing on its own. That company itself got the right to be taken to court and can take somebody to court. That is that legal entity, that legal status we are talking about. Does it make sense to you? Right. So partnership doesn't have that legal status. Then you see close corporation is on right separate legal. I say we don't have that again. Then you see, then private, it got a separate legal entity. It's on its own, like a human being. Can go take somebody to court. And if anything happens, so what it means is this: if there is a problem with the company, legal issues, you don't sue the directors, you sue the company. You see how it works? You got you as a director of companies, right? You got that kind of a protection, legal protection to an extent that if anything happens, they don't sue you, they sue the director, if they sue the company. then the company go and represent itself. Does it make sense to you? You see the big difference now. If you are operating a sole proprietorship, if you mess up, they're gonna come and sue you, right? They use your name. But if it is a company, you don't sue the directors, you sue the company. Does it make sense to you? Right. And there is what we call limited liability. We're gonna come to that, right? Okay. Now registration. You see, local registration, you don't need much registration for sole proprietorship, right? Then the same for partnership. What do we mean by local registration for partnership, right? You can just tell your guys, then you draw up a kind of an agreement, right? You know what we mean an agreement. If me and you we want to go into business, we can just put a kind of an agreement together, paper. Me and you will just write it. It doesn't need to be incorporated. It doesn't need to go to the registrar's office, whereby we need to go to company intellectual property corporation, whereby we they have to issue us a certificate. No, we can just put it on paper, write it. Okay, this is the agreement. You gonna contribute 50%, right? Me, I will contribute 50%. Whatever profit you're gonna make, you're gonna get 50%, then me, I'm gonna get 50%. In terms of decision making, we're gonna be 50-50, all those kind of stuff. You can just do it locally. Does it make sense to you? Are you getting what I'm saying? Hello? I see you are a little bit distracted. Please focus. Right? Then the one for close corporation, I say we don't have that again. But why it was in existence, you need to register it, right? You file, you submit your application, let me put it that way, to CIPRO. They used to call it CIPRO. CIPRO is Company Intellectual Property Registration Organization. But these days it's not CIPRO. They change it. So for companies, you need to submit your application, right? To CIPC. What did I say? The meaning of PIC? Company Intellectual Property Corporation. It's under the Department of Trade and Industry. When you complete the form, you submit your ID, the membership ID, or the directors. We call them directors. The ones that you want to use as directors. You submit their ID, then they will register it. Thereafter, they will send you a certificate. Let me see if I still have a certificate to show you, one of my certificate those days, so that you know what I'm talking about, right? So, certificate, I think that one gonna waste our time. Next time I'm gonna look for it, save it somewhere. Then when you come, I show you how registration certificate look like, right? When you incorporate your business, when you register your business, right? So yeah. Then in terms of formalities, sole proprietorship, it doesn't need much formalities, right? Then the same thing with partnership, right? But close corporation, you have what we call those days memorandum of association, right? Even in the companies, it got memorandum of association. This one say comprehensive, right? It's not supposed to be comprehensive. This memorandum, it got memorandum of association, MOU, right? How many of you have heard about that term before? MOU, MOU, memorandum of association. MOU. Have you heard about this before? We call it Memorandum of Association. Remember, I say in partnership, you just write a kind of an agreement, right? In terms of how you gonna operate, in terms of ownership, right? In terms of the management of the business. So for companies, it needs to be written. There is a document. These days it's very easy because the company registration office, they've got a kind of a template, right? Whereby you just need to complete. Then you don't need to meet a lawyer. Because in the real sense of it, this one is being drafted by a lawyer, qualified attorney that will help you to draft this. Because this is because it involves rights, because you don't know what is going to happen if in future the business develop to be a multi-billion rand business and your MOU is not right. Yourself, you're going to have a big problem. So it has to be comprehensively drafted, and your rights must be incorporated in terms of how the business is going to be run, the management, and all those kind of stuff. That is what is contained in the memorandum of association. Does it make sense to you? Because let's say you start a business today with somebody, or as a director, then if you passes on, another person will take over. That is another thing in terms of a company. It got that continuity, right? If a director happens to pass on, die, then they got a way of how they need to replace, who is going to replace the director, whether it's going to be from the family and all those type of stuff. Those things must be incorporated in the memorandum of association, because this thing is something of life. It's not a joke. You see, imagine you put your life investment in a business and your MOU is not well drafted. Once you pass on, another person come and take over your investment. Will you be happy? Right? So this one must be well drafted. Does it make sense to you? It will show the percentage share and everything. Right. I don't have a copy of my. I will see if I can get a copy of my MOU. I will show to you. Like I said, I've done all these things already on my own. Right? Yeah. So then, in terms of formalities, as we said, we talk about that. Then liability. As a sole proprietorship, you are individually liable. Like I said, if you mess up, they choke your neck. Right? So you must be careful if you are operating a one man's business, because you are not legally, I'm not saying in terms of human rights, you are not covered, right? But when it comes to sense of business, you don't have that legal status. You are a little bit exposed, right? So you must make sure that you conduct your business in a decent way. Does it make sense to you? Right. So in terms of liability, you are individually liable, right, for sole proprietorship. But in terms of partnership, you are jointly, Donga, I like this language, jointly and, look at what they say, jointly and severely liable. If you are in a partner business, right, if there is a problem with the business, you messed up, both of you, you're going to go for it. Do you understand what I mean? Because you are together mostly. You are like in a team, right? You're gonna go for it. So that is what we are saying. You are jointly, right, and severely liable. Then, in terms of close corporation, limited liability. Okay, let me talk about limited liability. This thing is interesting, right? Remember, you got some questions on this in the exam. I've seen some of the past question papers in the exam. They got a lot of questions from this aspect. That is why I specifically say I'm going to dedicate my time to it so that you know what is happening here. Right. And moreover, it can help you. You cannot study entrepreneurship, you don't know the form of business, right? So it will put you in a kind of a situation whereby you expose yourself to ridicule. Somebody will ask you, you studied entrepreneurship, but you don't know the types of business. That is why I decided to make sure that I dedicate time to it. Now, limited liability. What do we mean by limited liability? Limited liability, remember, I've touched on it while I was explaining legal entity or legal status. When a business got a limited liability, like companies, it means the extent of their liability is limited to what is in the business. What is liability in the first place? Liability means debt. You know debt. When you owe, owing. That is liability, right? So what it means is if your business is incorporated as a PTY, you got that legal status like a person, right? When the business is insolvent, let me explain to you again what is insolvent. Have you heard about that concept before? Insolvent. Uh, Insolvent. Have you heard about this concept before? Insolvent means when a business, younger, is in a position, bad financial position that they are unable to pay their debt. So when a business is becoming insolvent, they file for bankruptcy. Bankruptcy. You know what is bankruptcy? Bankruptcy. Bankruptcy. Liquidation. You know what is liquidation? Right? So when a business is getting liquidated, you know what liquidation, bankruptcy, insolvency, they are the same, right? That means the business is unable to pay their debt. They want to close. You know, a business can be closed if you cannot pay your debt. So if it is a PTY business, the money, if they are unable to pay, so the court will ask, we request that they sell whatever the asset in the business. They use it to pay their debtors. If eventually the money is not enough to pay, they don't go to the director's house to sell the property of the directors. So the liability is limited to what they invested in the business, not going to their house to take their private stuff or personal stuff. That is what we mean by liability being limited in the company. Right. Is the period over now? Okay, tomorrow we're gonna continue from here. Who is the taxpayer, salary, life of business, then the availability of capital. Right. Can you help me switch off the stuff? You know how to do it.